Hi everybody, welcome. Okay, so I'm doing a voiceover on this because I already recorded this lecture and we have a little bit of a problem, so I have to come back and voice over it. What I'm going to be doing right now is I am going to be expanding out my detail. I've been roughing this out, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start to identify a little bit more information up here on my structure, and I'm going to show you sort of that process. I did speed this demo up by 50%, so it was an hour long in length. Now it's about 38 minutes. Okay, so I'm painting a little bit faster than normal. Like I said, it was an hour, and now it's about 35, 38 minutes. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm sort of going in here, just double checking my layers, trying to minimize to see where I'm at. I noticed quite a few students in the class are already at numerous layers. I like working simple. I have the sky in the background on one layer, a foreground, midground, and then like a background layer, and that's it. It's just sort of simplified there, a little bit easier. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and with one of the brushes here, and I'm just going to start developing a little bit more detail and looking at some values and adjusting those just a little bit here. Okay. All right, so I got my brush here, and I'm just going to sort of go through here and start to outline just a couple ideas of what's maybe going on in my head. I'm looking at the structure, and sorry, that was me hitting my tablet, the automatic zoom button. So this is just sort of a process I just go through. I'm sort of coming in, it's not a black, it's more like a dark gray, and I'm just sort of defining what's there. And drawing a couple lines like this, it's like having a rough sketch in tone or marker, and now I'm going back over it and just trying to pull out some shapes, some patterns or ideas and see what develops. And actually, I sketched this little here, and then it just gave me a great idea. And since I have this on a separate layer, it just made me think about, since I have sort of that dome there, what if I get a pattern and put it on that dome? But let me continue right here. I'm just throwing in some lines here, trying to bring out some shapes. Okay. This is an exploration phase inside your work. You don't have to commit to anything fully, but you are, pushing and pulling shapes here by adding, little bits of dark. It's pulling objects down, and by adding any white highlights, it's going to pull it forward towards the viewer, right? So I had this idea now to make a structure. And so what I'm going to do is I'm doing this on a separate layer. And look at what I'm doing here. I'm just taking a brush. I'm at 100% here. And I'm going to make just like a sort of some type of a support system structure like this. Okay. Maybe this will be like a little antenna or something. Okay. I'm doing this on another layer, and I'm doing it larger. And the reason why I'm doing this is it would be awfully hard to draw super small and get this 100% accurate. So just a great little Photoshop technique that a couple of my friends who work in the industry, sort of taught me was draw a little bit larger and then just scale it down. Look at that. Fits right up on there. Has some real definitive detail. Adds a little bit to that structure, and then I could just keep progressing at this standpoint here. Okay, I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to rotate it. Then I thought, what if I can get that structure to go along the wrapping elliptical shape of like that loading dock that I have. So let me take my marquee. I'm going to delete this area here. Okay, and now I just have that. So again, I just duplicated the layer I had. I'm saving that little structure, and then I'm going to move the structure over here. Just put it right next to, maybe over here like this. That's a little bit better. There we go. I'm going to merge those layers and duplicate that real quick. Put it in front of it like that. Okay. Awesome. Now it's long enough. And then I'm going to scale that down a little bit here and see if I can get that to wrap around and be a little detail point for me. Okay. So there we go. So I'm getting that right here. And then what I'm going to do, just darken it a teeny bit, it's a little bit smaller. And I'm going to erase off a little bit here that I don't need. And I'm basically going to wrap that around. So I'm going to go to transform. And we'll go to warp here in just a second. Go warp, First, let me skew it a little bit and see if that'll make any. Nah, just warp it. It's weird. I'm voicing over on something in here. There we go. And grab those little corners, pull it out. Let me zoom in a little bit if that's a little bit easier to see there. Okay. And I mean, you gotta love that. I mean, what a great beneficial tool is it? It just allows me to take any structure. See that? And it just sort of warps. Now I have that little intricate detail warping around part of that landing bay. And that's what I wanted something to sort of pop out and identify part of that structure. Okay, and then I thought, you know what? Let's delete what I had on there. I like what I had there, but now I'm going to go to Safari and just go to the internet real quick and let's pull up. Okay, and stop for a minute, look back at this. Give me a second here. All right, here we go. Okay, I stopped the recording for a minute so I could get this off the internet and not waste your time. So look, I found this little simple pattern, a geometric hexagon pattern off the internet. I brought it in, and now I'm going to take this pattern. I rotated it, and I'm going to adjust I adjusted the layer to multiply. So now it's see-through, so it sits up on top. And I'm going to get that to about the right size that I want, and then I'm going to adjust the opacity of that layer to get it to lightly blend in so it looks like I have some type of hexagon pattern. However, though, the pattern's going straight across, so now I need to come in with my warp tool and I need to warp it to match the perspective of that ellipse. That ellipse is above my horizon line, therefore I'm looking up at it, and I would have, concentric circles going around, wrapping around that shape. So I need to get that to sort of match up, and that's by warping it and bending it like that. It makes it a little bit more believable than having it straight across. Straight across would actually kill part of the form because it would literally just be going like a straight line right across. Okay, there we go. And then I get sort of that shape in there. I get that element. Okay. All right. Sorry, that's me hitting the. I change it sometimes, but I work on a couple different Cintiqs and tablets, and recently I was able to get demo one of these portable Cintiqs. So it's my hand. They're all sort of different, and my arm hits that little zoom in, and I hate it, sort of zoom in there. But okay, let me go back in. Let me erase this a little bit here. I think I missed a little part before. Okay, let's get that in there. All right, that's a great thing. So lesson learned right now, just in 2 steps that I did, is I took something that was a dark line for detail and I've wrapped it over sort of my local value. And by doing that, it adds lots of nice little detail to my element, and you really get some of the shapes and the facades to merge together. Okay, and let me take these. I'm going to commit to this in a minute here. See if I want to adjust just a little bit of that opacity on there. There we go. Okay. There, now I have that structure starting to work for me. That's cool. I'm going to take my eraser. You just erase a little bit of it in here. See if I blend in a little easier. And 1 sec. I think what I was doing there is I was just brushing a couple little white highlights on top. Alright, I'm going to erase. I had a little bit of I need to tighten up a little bit of that sphere. I had some overpaint, overspray, from when I roughed in there, so I need to tighten that up a little bit, refine that down a little bit more, get that shape to really pop. Okay, and I was thinking there, I might want to have another structure back here, so I'm just using the oily hard edge brush, and same brush I was using before, and I like to just come along and just sketch up an idea or two for something that connects part of that structure back in here. And that's working pretty good, and just, roughing that in there. I know I shouldn't do this, but now part of me wants to noodle a little bit of this highlight in here to see how that back part of the structure, if it will fade back or work the way that I want it to work. If I had a highlight here and create a little bit more contrast there, would that work okay in there? Okay, brush a little bit of highlight up on here. See if I can get this form to round off a little bit. There we go. I'm just coming up on the top of my polygons here and just brushing some little highlights here because my light's sort of coming from the top. And I shouldn't do this all right now. I'm not trying to noodle or render in there. I'm just trying to push and pull some surfaces to get that my little base to sort of make sense. And then I can make some decisions on what is progressing or not progressing. Okay. So give me a minute here. I'm just going to doodle a little bit. It starts to happen in here. And again, this is part of that, this is part of that. We did the rough block in, and now we're sort of refining. We are refining, but then we're also getting a little bit more exploratory. Where now I'm starting to really try to define some of these shapes and figure out how my air base is working, what this structure is up here, what's attached to it, what's coming forward or receding in terms of values here. All right, and oops, hold on. I'm trying to remember what I was doing right here. I think I was adjusting, pulling out a little bit more of this mountain side here. Okay, just because this is to me one of the important parts of my piece here. So I want to really start to pull out some here and see how it's working or coming together. Let me see if I can just select some here. And see if I go, is it better to go light against that dark of the buildings or go dark? I need to make a decision here. But this is the fun part of just sort of pushing and pulling and seeing what happens, So I pulled this photo here, and something that I like to do to speed up my process sometimes is I just a photo of a refinery. Okay, so I just typed in refinery. I'm going to enlarge this segment here, and obviously it's very photoreal right now. So what I'm going to do is, what I like to do, sort of like a photo blend technique, is I'm going to take part of this photo. I'm going to run it through a filter so it doesn't look so photoreal. And when that's done, I'm going to see if I can't copy and paste part of the photo on areas and then paint on top of it. And I find like a good stepping stone, what I mean by stepping stone is sometimes I just grab a little swab of a texture, then I bring that into my piece, and then once I throw it in my piece and get it in the perspective that I want, it can fit and work a lot easier. Okay, so what I did right now, I ran this through a filter there, so you can see it's a little bit more blurry, feel nearly as tight, but it has some interesting values and shapes in there that I can use. I'm going to duplicate real quick. Okay, see if I can just scale this down and use this on the side, like back in here. So give me a second. Let me try to get this blended in. And I'm going to adjust the opacity on it, knock it back a little bit so it's fading a little bit in the back there. I'm going to see if I can erase around some of these edges here. Get into position where I think I might. And then, okay. And it actually fits some of the part of the perspective that I like too. I'm going to see if I can carve out a little bit more on the shapes here. So it's not so even, it's not so square. And just increase the silhouette, enhancing one spot, the other. And what I like to do is I'll throw something in now, and then I'll come back later and look at it and decide if that's something that I want to enhance a little bit more or late, So what happens when I'm working, a lot of other artists are working, is your eyes get used to what you're doing, and then you tend not to see any differences that might be happening. And so what's really important for me right now is to get in here and start to carve some of this out, some of this, and get that little edge to pop out there, and it looks sort of like a structure in there. Okay, like it's like a base up there. All right. And I'm going to come back and and I think I can use this somewhere else in my piece. I just got that good vibe. There's some real interesting shape arrangements on there that I could come in and mold into part of my base up there. Okay, to get this to work a little bit more. So I'm going to duplicate that and bring it over here. Let's thought about rotating it, see if I can just get it Let me just take a part of it here, just the top part. You won't notice that top, especially if it's all down. That could be a part I use for part of the base in the back here. Maybe like that. Yeah, those little angles there. See how those look like angled rooftops? Yeah, it looks like Titanfall, like the one of the air bases has this angled rooftop there that I can go up and snipe from. So it reminds me of something been into there. Okay. All right, give me a second. Let's erase some of this. Get this to blend in a little bit more. Get it away from the rocks there. There. That's sort of cool. So now it looks like my airbase sort of goes off to the right, blends in a little bit more to the side. Okay. All right. Okay. I was curious if I could use this somewhere else. I have an idea. Sometimes I squash it and stretch it. It's helpful to squash and stretch anything you're bringing in because you get something you would have never imagined and you might be able to apply it some way where it looks good, you know. So that didn't work out. Let me see. I forgot what I was doing right here. I think I was getting some highlights on, tightening this up a little bit more, part of that dome. I know I'm going to go back. I'm going to use some of this texture and I'm going to put it around the landing pad where it wraps around there just a little bit more. Okay, that's going to be next. I was trying to figure out if I can get something else in here. Maybe I need to scale that down a little bit so it looks more like a long antenna. I don't want anything to be, I want some variation in shape. What was I going to, I was going to add a little bit more to the building right in here. Oops, there we go. That way the building sort of comes out behind it, arranges. So maybe, I mean, when you look up there, look at the scale of this thing. It's got this huge round like hexagon domed area. It might be like where they keep the ships, and it's got this like large base up there, and there's like maybe oil refinery or plants up there. So, you know, part of my goal is, you know, this is going to be an important area for me with some detail in it. So, you know, putting some time into it, that's a good investment for me. I like that top bar. See how that fits in there and looks like it's like a supportive piece to part of that structure? I like that a lot. Let me scale that down. Let me see what I can use from here. See, isn't this great? See how wonderful it is? Just taking part of a photo, running it through a filter, turning it to a different angle or transforming it, and then you could take all these parts off of it and then using the opacity setting, lightly, you know, or levels first and then opacity, and then you can just get it to blend in to part of your paint the way that you want. And then you can come back and just sort of paint on top of it, you know. And it's just it's like a supporting feature that's going to help you out. Let me see if I can round some of these edges in here to make it look like, again, this is a, you know, elliptical shape. It's above our horizon line. We should be able to see underneath this. We're going to have some curves sort of taking place in there. Let's see how that's working. All right, so I think this is sort of a good demo to do because I'm getting lots of nice little nooks and cranny and detail in here. And something I had already thought about the night before was taking part of this structure I'm building that's in the midground here and enlarging it and bringing it a little bit closer to the viewer because I'm getting more detail in there. And, you know, I already imagined that sort of when I was designing it. I know I didn't thumbnail anything out for you guys, but I just, the way I was sort of envisioning it in my head. And then I thought, hey, if I get too much detail in here, I need to bring it a little bit closer to the viewer because it's so far back, I'm not going to see that much detail in it. But, you know, it depends. There could be a really super duper crisp snowy morning, right? You know, where it just like snowed the night before and it's real crisp and clean. I don't know if you've ever been snow skiing and you could see something like that where it's like really nice. What I'm doing right now is I'm grabbing the ellipse lasso. Under the Marquee selection, I'm grabbing the elliptical item here. And I'm just going to drop in a darker value underneath so I can display to the viewer how I can see underneath that. Again, back to perspective, I gave that analogy about the coffee cup, right? If I hold my coffee cup above my horizon line, I'm going to be able to see underneath it, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do right now, is get a bit darker in here and get this to blend in. Okay? Alright, I don't need that. Let me just delete that out. Oops. Wrong layer, my bad. Let me fix that. Let's go back, get the other layer. There we go. Now I've defined my structure a lot more. It's a little tight, a little over detailed, so I need to get in there and sort in and figure out what I'm going to add or subtract from it, but I'll do that in just a second here. Alright, so here, let me adjust this a little bit more. Let me see if I can select part of this. I had this idea of what if I took that, moved it down, squashed it, formed it, made it look like maybe there was a secondary landing pad behind this. And it's something I thought about when I was sketching this too. I like that idea of like multiple landing pads. But I don't know, maybe it's too much. So let me see if I can get that behind the layer here. Move that layer behind the key layer, and then I'm going to see if I can squash it down a little bit. The elliptical, the degree of that ellipse is going to change as we're getting closer to that horizon line. I'm still a little off there. Imagining it's not too bad. There's a little bit more adjustment. Sometimes you can get really, really picky about the perspective. At least I can. And then, you have to sort of back off and just, I go in to try to focus about the design and what's looking really cool. Then I can come back later and just really fix thing. But I mean, I think you're always aware of the perspective. You're just, taking a moment to make sure it's all sort of working here. Okay. So there we go. So that's, and I'm a little on that second pad. Part of me is thinking about perhaps, what if I lighten it down and make it look like it's more on the back side there? Because it's behind it, like around the corner. That might get it to pop a little bit. Now I'm thinking about, I should even probably scale it, but I don't know. I'm in the middle of the demo. I'm having second thoughts, and I think what I might do is just scrap it, and I can come back to it a little bit later or mess with it if I like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to commit, merge all these things down into one layer. Okay. All right. There, let me see here. Taking a look. What if I just had a little bit around that corner? Nah, see, now I'm fudging with it and I'm messing with something. This is why normally I do a series of thumbnails and break out my design. In this demo for the class, I was just sort of jumping into something really cool here. And now I'm sort of second guessing. I'm messing with this, and I don't know if it's really working the way that I want. However, though, it just gave me this idea. I see that like cool, see that little white line? That could be a support structure. Now I'm going to squash it. Let's stretch it. See that? I'm going to stretch it, move it down a little bit. Okay. And it could be a building in the back like that. That's what you got to love about this stuff, right? You can transform something, squash it and stretch it, move it another direction. You got a building. You can make ships with it. But now I'm going to make an arch. So I'm going to bend this in the warp. See that? I got that cool little arm now. Little, if you zoom in there, you can see here's some little cool little detail. It's like a white top underneath, And get that a little bit darker because it's going to be under the shadow side, right? Look at that. That could sort of fit in there and looks like it's some type of huge support arm that's support that facility together there. Let me delete a little bit of this so we can get a little bit more of the silhouette to pop out of that arm. Okay. Yeah, I got to get that. See that? And then there, that way the rock isn't overlapping it. Now we see a little bit more of the arm itself. But keep that up on the top layer. I had it underneath. I'm going to bring it back up on top, darken it a little bit, and then erase it. And later I'll blend that in a little bit more. Okay. Some of this other value, get that to move across there. It's nitpicking, getting some of that detail. I'm painting on top of part of that image now that's been ran through a filter, been transformed numerous times, and it's creating this cool little structure for me that now I can get in there and sort of paint on it, and it could start to work in my benefit and look correct. Okay, and just painting a little bit of a, maybe on the back here, a bit of a top roof that sort of fades off there. Enhances, so it's a base that maybe goes into the mountains, then it comes out, and you have this landing pad that's, you know, off the top there with this sort of hexagon dome shape. Okay, so let me get in here. I'm going to define this out. I like that shadow in there. Define this out a little bit more, and need to really decide and come up with a definitive answer of where that rock meets that structure, merged together. And that structure needs to come out just a little bit more. I'm just going to paste that in there real quick. And you know, the perspectives, I look back at this and I'm like, no, the perspective's off. But that's okay. It's a teeny bit off right there. I can fix that in a little bit later. You know, I just throw it in right now. I can paint and get it to blend in. And it's easy just to select that a little bit later. Commit to it. Put it on there. And then later I can just select it, warp it, bend it a little bit to one side, and then just paint where there might be any other marks that may be filled in. But I like that structure. I mean, look at what I have, this cool little detail. You know, I got that wraparound like fence, not fence, but like some type of a gate or support structure. Got that hexagon shape. I got the other elements in the back. Probably need to go back in and simplify parts of those photos that are in the back there because they're a little too detailed for me. Or I need to grab this whole piece here and bring it towards the mid. I'm going to just create a sphere over this right now, like so, and then and I did that by just by selecting the elliptical marquee tool. Okay, under the marquee, which is that square box, you press and hold there. There's the elliptical, and what I'm going to do now with that selected right there is I can come in and brush, so I can get that right in position where I want it. Then I can brush some highlights because now I have a nice selection. So if I come in here and start brushing some highlights on top of that dome, it'll become more pronounced, especially with the light coming down and sort of hitting it from the correct angle there. So let me get that going here. There you go. What brush? Let's do this sort of a texture. That's why I was telling you guys before, word of the wise, work with like 4 or 5 brushes. Get used to those, work with those, and then get a couple more, and then just start simple. Stay simple. There's so many options. Adjust them, manipulate them, and it just gets sort of time consuming sometimes when you want to block something in. You got to figure out what do you want to work, not work. We get sort of a nice highlight right here, wrapping over part of that surface. We're going to have a specular highlight, and then maybe it fades over a little bit. Okay. I should just leave it alone right here, but then I start noodling with it a little bit more, put more detail in there. Okay. And there we go. Punch up that highlight a little bit more, get a little bit more light sort of glowing off there. I should have done a little bit more on the back and a little bit on the middle. The light's coming sort of directly above it. So imagine a sphere and holding a flashlight directly above it, what that sphere is going to look like, especially a sphere that has like glass panels, right? Okay. All right. There you go. I'm just trying to get this other side here. And I wish they had a, you know what shop needs is you need to be able to draw an elliptical marquee. And, oh, a little secret. So I can't draw on it right now when the layer's empty because there's nothing in the middle. And so it sucks if you draw the elliptical marquee and then you go to hit the move tool, it selects anything that's there. And then if there's nothing there, it'll tell you there's no selection. So sometimes it'd be great if you could just select a marquee, move it around, then get it where you want it, and then sort of paint in it. And there's an option to select in the middle and move it, but then sometimes it doesn't work quite as well. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put a little bit of a drop shadow in, so I'm going to select around these rocks right here, because you know, look, I got light coming above, right? So, and I'm going to go to a soft brush now and just brush a little bit of a blue on that. Take that surface sort of right there. Okay. Let me see. There we go. Like just a real simple pass here with some blue. See that? And just instantly wraps that surface and just adds more dimension, I mean, to it. It's you know, we're wrapping a shape with a value that's creating more of a turn happening. You know, it's from the top is where the light's coming down, and then that wrapping over on top of it. Okay. One of the problems, though, I've been zoomed in there working, so now I'm starting to get all that little detail in there. Okay, so I will, not right now, but I will get in there and enlarge that a little bit. It's a little too detailed to be so far in the midground, and I'm just imagining the lower base of the structure coming out a little bit more, and being coming out more to the midground towards the foreground, so it's a little bit more defined. Okay. So I'm going to go here and just remind myself, check a couple of my, see what I got, how I have everything separated. So pretty much, what I've done in this little demo here is I've just gone in there in much detail and just using a couple different techniques. The first technique I did was just using line and just defining some areas out. The second technique I used is then I came in and just on another layer I drew like a structure, and then I scaled it down and I wrapped it around, so I'm drawing detailed areas larger on another layer and then transforming it down smaller, which is a great work. It's really fast and convenient. And then the third thing I did is I just took part of like a refinery photo. I took a little part of it, I took a clip off of that, I ran it through a filter, I adjusted it, transformed it, painted on top of it, and then I start to create some of that other little finite, more interesting detail that's inside my piece. Okay. Get a little highlight on here, so we're wrapping over that edge. There we go. Lighten that up a little bit. It's getting a little too dark back there. Plus, it's so bright, I'm going to have light bouncing back off the snowbanks, right? Coming back underneath. So again, look at, I'm turning on my value now to see how my values are working. So I'm not too dark back here. I do want to get some more snow back there to get that to pop a little bit. And I like my darker values, sort of my shadow values, they're not too bad. They're, at about a 50% grade. And I don't want to be any darker than I'm in my midground. What I like to do now, I'm going to come in here, I want to paint a little bit on top of this photo and change it a little bit. I might do this sometimes where I block stuff out, and trust me, it's much harder doing this when you're talking in a demo and painting at the same time. It's a total pain in the butt, and that's what I was doing here. Unfortunately, the mic wasn't working on my laptop, so I had to come back and do this voiceover. But when I work, I'm just listening to good music, and you get in this vibe, and then when you're in that vibe, you just sort of start happening, and then you completely, the brain, the right side of the brain is focused on being creative, and you sort of lose track of time, and you just sit there and create your work, So little adjustments here, really finessing part of this little structure here, which I think would be, it's pretty important part of my paint there. All right, noodle a couple little details here. Be finishing just a couple minutes, all right? And just brushing in a little bit darker detail in here, trying to figure out how I want to get this to blend in. So maybe it's like a structure that comes down and there's like cement poured, in the concrete. Maybe I have a little bit of snow at the end here that's gathering around, trying to get some facades of that hill to pop forward too. And bring that back out a little bit more. And that's pretty, I define that up to a certain point, and definitely at this point I put about, I think I said I was about 45 minutes into this right now, but in the demo here we're only at about 33 minutes. So I've defined this up enough, where I could figure out how I want it to work. And here's what I was thinking about earlier. Look, if I take this and enlarge it a little bit, put it up in the foreground here, a little bit smaller. See, and then if I bring this down, see, it's a detailed enough where it could be up in that foreground. Look at that, Boy, it's great to be able to have that option, just to select something, transform it, get it to fit where you want it. Now, I thought about putting a light blur on it if it's more in the midground to get rid of some of that detail, but nah, it was just an idea. I'm not going to do that, change my mind on that. I do want to enlarge it a little bit more and just get that out just a teeny bit more to get it to work with. Okay, I think I might do that later. So that's it. That's pretty much this point, but now it's going to be on my mind where I'm thinking about, hey, grab that structure, enlarge it just a little bit here, and let's get it to blend in. But that's it. You know, I'm pretty much done. I got that developed. I got some of my foreground. I can get a little bit more in the midground, and then I'd be finished and be wrapped up. Okay? Thanks, guys. See you soon.